Y'all ever had somebody show up on your land talking like they own the damn place? Yeah, I've been there. She showed up with a damn lawsuit, heels too clean for country dirt, and a face that said, "We're taking this ranch." Spoiler alert. They picked the wrong son of a bitch. My name's Grizz McAllister. I'm a retired attorney general, and I don't give a damn what some plastic neighborhood committee thinks they don't own me. They don't own this land, and they sure as hell don't make the rules out here. This is the story of how I took down a crooked-ass HOA and made 'em wish they'd never messed with the wrong cowboy. Where y'all watching from? Drop it in the comments. I want to see how far this fight for real freedom's reaching. I was trimming a damn oak limb behind the barn when the dogs lit up like sirens. Thought maybe a coyote had wandered too close again. Happens out here. But then I heard it click, clack. Click, the sound of high heels stomping through ranch dirt like they own the place. I turn around. And what do I see? This slicked up lady strutting toward my front gate like she's on a damn runway. Red heels sinking into the soil, holding a shiny-ass briefcase that looked like it ain't seen dust a day in its life. Her blazer screamed big city law firm, and her expression said, "I'm here to ruin your day." She stops, grins like she's holding pocket aces, and raises a manila envelope like it's the freaking Declaration of Independence. "Good afternoon," she chirps. The dogs are barking like crazy, and I'm standing there with a pruning saw in one hand and a rag in the other, looking like I just stepped out of the Dust Bowl. "You Hank McAllister." I wipe my hands and nod. "Yeah, that's me. What's it to you?" She steps forward and hands me the envelope like she's passing a death sentence. "You've been served. The Clear Horizon Valley Homeowners Association is suing you for unauthorized structures, violations of community visual standards, and failure to file architectural permits." I raise an eyebrow, tear open the envelope right there, and flip through it. Legal mumbo jumbo, HOA letterhead. Blue ink signatures looked official as hell. Fancy, too. Like they thought if they made it pretty enough, I'd just roll over. Her name's printed on a card tucked in the folder, Renee Talbot, Esq, Legal Counsel, CHVHOA. She looked me straight in the eye, cold and smug. "I strongly advise you to remove the red barn, the satellite tower, and the flagpole by the end of the week, or this matter will escalate quickly." I stared at her for a beat. Then I smiled. Not the nice kind, the kind that says, "You just kicked the wrong rattlesnake." "Miss Talbot," I said, taking a slow step closer. "I'm a retired attorney general for the great state of Texas. I helped write half the land use statutes in this county. That ranch you're standing on, it's outside your jurisdiction. Always has been. You'll find it in the zoning records, beyond if you care to read them." Her mouth twitched. Just a little crack in the ice. "You might want to tell your little HOA buddies they just tried to sue the wrong cowboy." She blinked once, lips twitching again, but then she snapped right back into lawyer mode. "We'll see about that." Then she spun on her overpriced heel, wobbled a bit on the gravel city girl, and marched back to her slick-ass black BMW parked out on the road like it owned the horizon. I didn't laugh. Not yet. Because I had a feeling in my gut, the kind of feeling you get right before a tornado hits. That woman and her damn HOA, they weren't done. Not even close. Back when I bought this land, there weren't no community standards, no street signs named after birds that don't live here, and damn sure no HOA board making rules about how tall your grass can be or what kind of shade your barn ought to be painted. It was just me, the dirt, the sky, and silence. Hell, I still remember the first morning I stepped out onto this property. Coffee in hand, sunrise spilling over the hills like melted gold. I remember thinking, now this is freedom. Fast forward 2 years, and that sunrise was getting blocked by pastel-colored townhouses stacked like chicken coops. They called it Clear Horizon Valley, which was rich. considering the only thing they cleared was every goddamn mesquite tree between my ranch and the county line. I watched them build it, bulldozers rolling in like an invading army, paved roads where the deer used to cross, fences that screamed, "Keep out louder than words." Hell, they even installed fake gas lamps that turn on automatically at dusk. Classy stuff. For a prison. At first, I didn't think much of it. Let folks build their suburban fantasy. Ain't none of my business. My ranch was outside the development lines. I was zoned agricultural, not residential. Protected, untouchable. Or so I thought. The first sign of trouble came in the form of a folded letter shoved in my mailbox. No return address. Just a generic letterhead from Clear Horizon Valley Homeowners Association. Typed all neat like they expected it to be framed. Inside, a friendly reminder that my external structures may be subject to review pending community visual standards. Community what I snorted, crumpled it, and fed it to the wood stove. Didn't think much of it. Then came another one. And another. Each one a little bolder. Talking about how my barn may pose a visual inconsistency or how my solar panel placement could affect nearby property values. That one nearly made me spit whiskey. Nearby property values. The closest damn house was half a mile away and it was still under construction. Still, I didn't bite. I've dealt with worse than passive-aggressive paper pushers. Hell, I once had a drug cartel lawyer try to bribe me with a Rolex back when I was still working in Austin. I mailed it back with a chicken bone inside. But this wasn't just legal saber rattling. These people were organized, persistent, and their queen bee a devil in yoga pants named Debbie Klein. Debbie showed up one day at the farmer's market in town. I was picking through tomatoes when I heard someone behind me say, "Oh, you must be the one with the red barn out on County Road 48. It's distinctive." I turned around. There she was, early 50s. Bleach blonde. Crisp white jacket like she was about to host a talk show. Jewelry clinking, gum smacking, holding an overpriced iced latte in a reusable cup that probably cost more than my monthly feed bill. "Yeah," I said, "that's mine." She smiled, tight-lipped. Teeth too perfect. You know, it's a bold color choice. Doesn't really fit the Clear Horizon Valley palette. We're encouraging more natural tones. Sand, sage. Maybe a nice beige. I looked her dead in the eyes. That barn's been red longer than your HOA's been breathing. She blinked. Once. Smiled again. "Well, I just thought you'd want to help support neighborhood harmony." I tipped my hat. "I ain't part of your neighborhood." "Darlin', I'm part of the dirt you built your neighborhood next to." She left with a chuckle, but her eyes said different. They said war. Next thing I know, I start noticing strange cars pulling over on the road out front. Folks sitting inside, snapping photos like bird watchers. One guy even stepped out with a damn drone. I walked right up and asked if he needed help finding his spine. He flew off fast, and then it got real dirty. Found my fence snipped one morning. Just one section, about 10 feet. Clean cut, like bolt cutters. My cattle didn't get out, thank God. But it didn't happen by accident. Someone was sending a message. Then came the busted mailbox. Took a bat. Maybe a truck mirror. Dent was deep enough to fit a baseball. I filed a report. Sheriff's office said they'd look into it, but without footage. Without a witness, nothing they could do. That night, I installed cameras. Real ones. Not those Amazon toys they're wired, waterproof and motion triggered, and they back up to the cloud in real time. My Army vet neighbor, Bobby Ray, helped me set them up. "Damn shame," he said, tightening a bolt on the side of the barn. "You out here living peaceful, and they come poking the bear." I spit into the grass. They think I'm some old farmer with a shovel and a flag. They forgot I've also got 3 law degrees, a Rolodex of judges, and a grudge that don't go away easy. 2 days after the fence got cut, Bobby Ray came over holding his phone with that same look he had back in Afghanistan, like something stank worse than a week-old wound. Grizz, he said, you need to see this. It was a screenshot from one of them next door type apps the HOA folks use like a digital gossip circle. Debbie Klein had posted, publicly no less, "We must preserve the aesthetic integrity of Clear Horizon Valley. That red barn is depreciating our homes. Our legal team is working on a solution. We will not let outside elements destroy our harmony." I laughed, not a soft chuckle, neither. I mean a full belly beer snorting? You gotta be kidding me, kinda laugh. They call my damn barn an element now, I said. Next thing you know, they'll say I'm causing climate change. Bobby didn't laugh. These people ain't playing. Man, you better get ready. I was born ready, son, I said, grinning like a coyote near the henhouse. But now I'm pissed. The next morning, a thick white envelope shows up on my front porch. Not in the mailbox. No postage. Just sitting there like it knew it didn't belong. Inside photographs of my barn, my flagpole, my solar panels. Close-ups, too. Creepy close. One was taken through my damn fence at an angle that meant somebody came onto my land, and stapled to the photos an anonymous letter. Typed. Bolded. You've been warned. You're ruining everything we built. Get with the program or get gone. No name. No signature. But I didn't need one. I knew exactly whose peppermint stinking fingerprints were all over this. That night, I poured 2 fingers of bourbon, sat on the porch, and let my blood simmer. The stars were out. Crickets singing. Wind blowing gentle through the trees. You'd never know a war was brewing underneath all that quiet. I ain't the type to throw the first punch, but you bet your ass I'll throw the last one. Let me tell you something about HOAs. They ain't about community. Not anymore. Not when folks like Debbie Klein run them like mini dictatorships dressed in khakis and crop tops. They use terms like visual standards, but what they really mean is control. Control over your grass, your porch chairs, your goddamn window blinds. And when they can't control you, they turn to scare tactics. Only problem is, I ain't scarable. Not anymore. I've seen worse. I've faced cartel lawyers, corrupt senators. Hell, I once went nose to nose with a sitting governor who tried to cover up a land grab. That bastard resigned before I even filed charges. So no, Debbie Klein and her HOA ain't the baddest game I've hunted, but they are the dumbest one to poke the bear. The next morning, I brewed my coffee black as sin, stood at my porch, and looked out over the field. My red barn stood tall, flag flapping in the breeze, solar panels glinting under the Texas sun like middle fingers made of glass. And I made a decision. They wanted to play hardball. Fine, I'd bring the goddamn hammer. I've been in a lot of rooms where people tried to screw me over. Courtrooms, campaign fundraisers, one god-awful brunch with the governor's brother. Point is, I've seen snakes slither in neckties before. But let me tell you something. HOA meetings whole different breed of poison. These folks weren't just entitled, they were weaponized, dressed in beige and drinking cucumber water, thinking they were saving civilization one parking regulation at a time. Truth is, they ain't saving shit. They're just power-drunk suburban warlords writing tickets because they can't win real fights. Anyway, after that envelope showed up and I had that chat with Judge Clara Hightower, I knew I couldn't let these jackasses keep pushing. Clara, bless her bourbon-laced heart, told me over the phone, Grizz, you got 3 choices rollover, lawyer up, or show up. I picked door number 3. Clear Horizon Valley's HOA meetings happened in their so-called Community Wellness Center, which looked like a funeral home and smelled like rosemary foot cream. It was Friday night. Hot. Humid. The kind of night where sweat crawls down your back, even if you're standing still. I didn't dress up. Just my cleanest pair of Levi's. My boots shined like the good old courtroom days. A button-down tucked half-assed, and that worn leather jacket that still carried the ghost of cigar smoke and long drives through West Texas. My old AG badge was hanging from my neck, half covered but close enough to flash if someone got cute. I walked in 15 minutes early. Room was already buzzing with folks fanning themselves, flipping through printouts, talking about drainage issues and whether Halloween decorations should be non-threatening. I grabbed a chair in the back. Didn't say a word, just sat, arms folded, eyes like steel. Few folks gave me side glances. One old fellow in a polo shirt nodded polite, but most looked at me like I'd farted in their sangria. Didn't bother me. I wasn't there to make friends. I was there to deliver a goddamn wake-up call. And then she walked in. Debbie Klein, head of the HOA, self-appointed queen of cul-de-sac law. She strutted in like a pageant mom at war. High heels clicking, clipboard in hand, mouth pursed so tight it could have popped a walnut. She spotted me. Stopped mid-step. Eyes narrowed. The look on her face pure suburban terror, wrapped in a sugar-free smile. She marched over, all polite fury. "Mr. McAllister," she said, voice like a frozen smoothie. "Didn't expect to see you here tonight." "Well, that makes two of us," I replied. Cool as a winter creek. Figured since y'all were so interested in me, I'd return the favor. She tried to block the view of the papers on her clipboard. "This is a private HOA meeting," she said, "and you're using public zoning codes to harass someone outside your jurisdiction." I shot back, "I'm here to observe. Make sure the record reflects the truth for once." That landed? She blinked, then scurried off like a roach under kitchen lights. Meeting started at 7 sharp. A dude named Rick, some kind of HOA secretary with a comb-over and clipboard, stood up and welcomed everyone. Ran through a list of boring updates about flower beds and HOA dues. Then, on the projector screen, it happened. Slide number 12. Boom. A high-res photo of my barn. Captioned, "Ongoing legal action. Property disruption analysis." Room went quiet. I stood up slow. Real slow. Let the floorboards creak a little for effect. "Chair recognizes Hank McAllister," I said loud and clear. Debbie nearly choked on her diet Sprite. Some folks turned around. A few gasped. One lady whispered, "Oh, hell, it's him. Damn right it's me." "Y'all want to talk about legal actions," I said. Stroll into the front like I owned the room. "Then let's talk legal." I pulled out my phone, connected to the projector wirelessly, thank you. Bobby Ray, and brought up a county zoning map. Zoomed straight into my property line. Bold. Clear. Not under HOA jurisdiction. Not ever. "You see this?" I pointed. "That little line. That's the border between your fantasy land and my real-world ranch. You folks don't have legal claim to a single inch of my land. Not the grass. Not the flagpole. Not the damn shadow my barn casts at sunset." Someone in the audience snorted. "I went on what you do have is a history of harassment. Letters, photos, vandalism, even a freaking drone flying over my property." I held up a folder of printouts. Time-stamped photos, witness statements, even the anonymous threat note. Fingerprinted and copied. This ain't community. This is a damn crusade. And if it don't stop, I'll file a counter lawsuit so hard it'll make your mailboxes spin. Silence. Dead silence. Debbie tried to stand up. This is highly irregular," I cut her off. "You're damn right it is. Just like this whole operation." A man in the front row raised his hand. Looked like a dentist. Polished loafers and khakis ironed to hell. "Wait, who are you?" "Exactly," I smiled. "The name's Hank Grizz McAllister. Retired Attorney General. Been practicing law longer than most of y'all been arguing about fence paint." Gasps. A few folks turned to each other like they'd just found out their pastor used to run moonshine. I tipped my imaginary cowboy hat. "Y'all enjoy your meeting. I'll be seeing some of you in court." And just like that, I walked out. I didn't look back when I walked out of that clubhouse. Didn't need to. I could feel the weight of their stares stuck to my back like Texas humidity. I knew exactly what was going through their heads. Oh shit. We picked a fight with someone who actually knows what the hell he's doing. I drove home with the windows down. Wind hit in my face. Willie Nelson humming on the radio. I should have felt good. Victorious, even. But I didn't. Because I knew people like Debbie. And people like Debbie didn't quit. They regrouped. They got sneakier. They stopped fighting out in the open and started crawling in the damn shadows. And sure as hell, that same night, at 2:13 in the goddamn morning, I woke up to the sound of shattering glass. I keep a Smith & Wesson in the drawer next to the recliner. Standard practice out here living far from town. You don't call 911. You are 911. I grabbed the revolver, threw on my boots, and crept down the hallway. Every floorboard in that house knows me, so I moved quiet, damn near silent. Got to the front room, moonlight spilling through the busted window, shards of glass glittering like ice across the floor, and sitting in the middle of all that broken beauty a rock. Wrapped in duct tape, taped to it, a note. Printed, block caps, bold. Back off. I picked it up. Didn't even flinch. Hell, I'd gotten scarier notes from pissed-off lobbyists back in '98, but this wasn't some HOA letterhead passive aggression. This was personal. I called Deputy Cole Travis. He showed up 20 minutes later, lights off, cruising quiet like a man who knew the land. That's why I liked the kid. He didn't treat my place like some city crime scene. He walked slow, flashlight low, respectful. Damn, he muttered, crouching near the busted window. Someone's getting bold. He took photos, bagged the rock, dusted for prints, though I didn't expect much. Cowards like that don't leave their name behind. You think it's the HOA, he asked. I looked him dead in the eyes. They filed a lawsuit, then used my face in a presentation, then got roasted in front of their whole damn community. What do you think he didn't answer? Didn't need to. The next day, I installed 4 more cameras. Wired, hidden. Some disguised as birdhouses. Others tucked under eaves. Hell, I even ran one through the old windmill tower. Bobby Ray came over to help. You planning for war, he asked. War already started, I told him. I'm just setting traps. He handed me a cold beer when we were done. You think they'll stop? Nope. I said, taking a long pull? I think they just realize they can't win clean. So now they'll play dirty. I wasn't wrong. 3 days later, I got a letter from the county planning office. Said someone filed an environmental complaint against my ranch, accusing me of illegal water runoff from my solar panels. Yeah, you read that right. Apparently, according to them, my solar setup was somehow disrupting the local ecosystem, redirecting water, possibly causing erosion. I stared at that paper so long it started to smoke. I'd hired a licensed environmental engineer when I installed those panels. Got permits, reports, diagrams, all of it triple signed and notarized. Hell, my solar runoff helped the grass grow better along the west fence line. This wasn't a complaint. This was a goddamn paper bomb. A bureaucratic Molotov meant to bury me in red tape, waste my time, and make me spend money proving something I already knew was legal. Well, bad news for them, I've spent 30 damn years drowning people in paperwork for a living. They just stepped into my arena. So I started building the case. Big binder, black leather, thick enough to stop a bullet. Inside, all my permits, soil and runoff reports, inspection documents, zoning laws, aerial drone images, time-stamped photos, and one hell of a signed affidavit from the guy who installed my solar system, who also happened to be a former Navy engineer with less patience than me. I wasn't just going to fight this. I was going to burn their whole playbook down. When the hearing date came, I put on the gray suit. Not for show. That suit had history. I'd worn it when I argued in front of the Supreme Court of Texas. I'd worn it the day I shut down a land grab scheme from a crooked oil firm back in CE before. Put that jacket on. And I wasn't just Hank anymore. I was Grizz, the lawyer. The hammer. The hearing room was packed. Front row Debbie Klein, hair perfectly curled, wrists loaded with bangles, face tight as a drum, sitting right next to Renee Talbot, her pet lawyer, the same one who served me the first envelope. She looked smug, like this was her victory lap. They didn't know. They had no idea they'd walked into a goddamn buzzsaw. When the judge called my name, I stepped forward and placed the binder down so hard it made the microphones pop. Your Honor, I began. Voice firm but calm. This complaint is based on false assumptions, incorrect zoning claims, and an absolute misunderstanding of both environmental code and personal boundaries. I laid out the evidence, one item at a time. Maps, measurements, weather data, expert testimony. Then I dropped the hammer. Furthermore, Your Honor, this appears to be part of a pattern of behavior by the Clear Horizon Valley, HOA. A campaign, if you will, of targeted harassment. Judge leaned forward. Renee started scribbling like her pen was on fire. Debbie just sat there, frozen. 20 minutes later, the ruling came down. Complaint dismissed. HOA has issued a cease and desist regarding all activity involving Mr. McAllister's property. Further attempts may result in legal sanctions. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just tipped my hat to the judge, nodded once at Debbie like told you so. Sweetheart, and walked out slow. But I knew this wasn't the end. Because the thing about bullies, when you beat them in the open, they don't retreat. They go underground. And that night, Bobby Ray came running over with a screenshot from a private HOA group. We may have lost the court hearing, but we can make his life miserable. Flood him with calls, stage violations. Let's see how tough he is then. I set my bourbon down. My jaw tightened. They just declared open war. And next time I wasn't bringing paperwork. The night after that court hearing, I sat on my porch with Duke, my old cattle dog, by my side and a glass of rye in my hand. The wind was still, stars stretching wide across the sky like God was bragging. I should have felt good. Hell, I should have felt safe. But something in the air felt off. The kind of quiet that comes right before a rattlesnake strikes or a tornado kisses the soil. And I was right. Because at 2:43 a.m., I woke up to the sound of glass shattering in my front room. I ain't the kind of man who runs. I grabbed my Smith & Wesson from the nightstand and moved through the hallway like a shadow in boots. Duke was already growling. He's half deaf, half blind, but his instincts are sharper than a barbed wire fence. The window was smashed. Front living room. Big one over the antique desk. Glass everywhere, and sitting in the middle of it, like the cherry on a shit sundae, was a rock the size of a damn softball wrapped in duct tape. Taped to it another note. All caps. Black marker. Big and bold. This is your warning. Back off. Now I've been threatened before. Back in my AG days, we locked up white-collar crooks, land thieves, one goddamn meat-packing company that tried to bury waste in a school zone. I got threats mailed in pig intestines once, but this was different. This wasn't professional. This was personal. I called Deputy Cole Travis again. He showed up within the hour, still half asleep but alert, his jaw tight like he wanted to swing at something. Same handwriting, he asked, flashing his light over the note. Looks close, I said. Same tone, at least. Whoever it is, they ain't trying to scare me off with legal BS anymore. Cole picked up the rock with gloves, bagged it, started dusting for prints. Anything from the last one, I asked? Partial? Nothing solid? Probably wiped clean. I poured him coffee. Sat in silence while he did his thing. Think it's them, he asked. HOA folks, I said. Sippin'. Debbie and her little cult. Hell yes. Nobody else got this kind of hate from my barn. He gave a slow nod. Then he said something that stuck with me. They think they own this county now, but you just reminded them they don't. But they weren't done. 3 days later, when I came home from feeding cattle to the smell of burning plastic, first it was faint, like maybe someone had a trash fire going. But as I rounded the back of the barn, my blood turned cold. There was smoke pouring out of the brush pile near the old shed. Orange flickers. Flames already licking the dry hay. I dropped the feed bucket and ran for the hose. Cussing so hard, I made Duke bark twice. Got the fire out before it hit the barn. Thank God. But it left a scorched black patch the size of a damn kiddie pool. And when the fire chief came by, he didn't even blink. This ain't no accident, he said. Somebody used starter fluid or kerosene, poured it from the fence line inward. Patterns clear. Arson. Now it was official. I called Judge Clara again. Told her everything. She didn't hesitate. Grizz, it's time to stop playing defense. Hit him with everything you got. So that's what I did. I pulled out the big black binder, added the rock, the photo of the scorched patch, the video footage from my hidden cam that caught two figures running through the brush at 2 a.m. blurry. But real. One was limping. The other had a hat. I knew one of them. Had to be Troy Barker, the HOA's so-called maintenance coordinator. And I had a hunch about the other. Next stop, Sheriff Darnell. I drove straight to the sheriff's office. Old buddy from my AG days. Used to be a game warden before politics dragged him behind a desk. But the man still had fire in his belly. I dropped the evidence on his desk like a damn Bible in church. Tom, he said, flipping through it. This ain't harassment anymore. This is a campaign. Damn right it is. I said, and I want every single one of them served. Debbie, Renee, Troy, whoever else is playing muscle. You want charges? I want charges. Injunctions. And court orders so tight they can't even whisper my name without getting slapped with contempt. He grinned. Now that's the Grizz I remember. That weekend, sheriff's deputies personally delivered subpoenas to every HOA board member. At their houses. At the clubhouse. Even caught Debbie by the damn pool. Drinking white wine and lecturing someone about lawn edging. She turned beet red, screamed at the poor deputy like it was his fault. Tried to say it was harassment ironic, considering what she'd been dishing out. But the look on her face, that was the look of power slipping through polished fingers. And I was just getting started. I figured once the subpoenas landed, they'd finally back off, crawl back into their pastel-colored holes and lick their wounds. But no. Because the more I pushed back with law, the more they doubled down with cowardice. And this time, they brought company. It happened the next week. I was in the shed, fixing a busted gate latch, when the power went out. Not just a flicker, gone, total blackout. Now look, power cuts happen out here sometimes. Storm rolls in, line drops, maybe a tree kisses a transformer. But this sky was clear. And everything went out at once. Lights, barn cams, even the workshop's inverter. But what they didn't know was that Bobby Ray had helped me install a redundant backup system and motion-triggered trail cams on the back pasture. So when I saw the shadows outside, I already had them on film. Two figures creeping around the edge of my property. One carried what looked like bolt cutters. The other, a metal canister. I stepped out onto the porch, flashlight in one hand, Smith & Wesson on my hip. Just in case. Boots hitting wet grass from the dew. The wind had stilled. Moon was bright. You're on private property, I said, voice low but clear. Turn around, hands where I can see 'em. The taller one dropped the cutters. The second figure froze. Turned real slow. And that's when I saw his face. Troy Barker. Same punk who once told Bobby Ray his flagpole disrupted community symmetry. Tom, we weren't doing nothing. He stammered. In my locked shed at 2 in the goddamn morning. Other guy bolted like a jackrabbit. Gone in the dark. Troy didn't move. I hit speed dial. Deputy Travis answered on the first ring. Trespassers at my place. One in custody. One fled. I've got footage. On the way, he said. They cuffed Troy right there on my porch. I gave him a blanket while we waited. Not out of kindness, but because we do things by the book around here, unlike his HOA buddies. Cole shook his head as he bagged the bolt cutters. Looks like they were going to break in. Maybe sabotage, I said. You think that canister had anything in it? No idea. But I've got cams on the back field. Might have caught the other guy's face. You recognize him? Not yet, I lied. I had my suspicions. The next morning, Bobby Ray and I reviewed the trail cam footage. There he was. The second figure, Leonard Kent, younger brother of Renee Talbot, the HOA's personal legal pit bull. I'd seen him once power washing the clubhouse sidewalk while wearing AirPods and a tank top that said HOA strong. The irony. By that afternoon, I handed everything to Sheriff Darnell and Ada Jolene Harper. They didn't blink. You're telling me they tried to break into your tool shed with bolt cutters? After cutting your power, Jolene asked, and one of them's directly related to the HOA's legal counsel. Yep, got it all on tape. She leaned back in her chair, whistling. Tom, that's criminal conspiracy, trespassing, attempted vandalism. Hell, maybe even intent to intimidate a witness. I said nothing. Didn't need to. She saw it in my eyes I was done playing. 3 days later, formal charges were filed. Troy cracked first, gave a full statement, threw everyone under the bus, said Debbie told him to scare the old man, said Leonard came up with the plan to knock out the generator and plant illegal chemicals near my property to fake an environmental violation, said they'd chickened out when they saw the new cameras. Too little. Too late. Debbie Klein was arrested at her home, screamed bloody murder, told the deputies she ran this community, and that this was all a setup. Samantha. Sorry. Renee Talbot went quiet. Law firm frozen, license under review. Her brother Leonard turned himself in 2 days later, tail tucked and lawyer crying. Within a week, the entire Clear Horizon HOA board had resigned. Just like that. A house of cards built on threats, bullshit, and beige paint codes collapsed in a storm of their own making. And you'd think I'd be celebrating. I wasn't, because this wasn't victory. Not yet. This wasn't about one man or one ranch. This was about every poor soul those bastards had bullied before me, folks who didn't have law degrees or cameras or friends in high places. And that's when I made my choice. I wasn't just going to end them. I was going to make sure no one like them ever rose again. You ever feel like a fight just turned into a damn mission? That's where I was. I'd already slapped Debbie's gang with court orders, watched half the HOA board get dragged out in cuffs, and shut down their Mickey Mouse legal campaign. But the truth, that was just surface-level scum. And I had a hunch. A real itch-in-your-teeth kind of hunch. That behind all the threats and fires and rock throwing? There was money involved. Because you don't go scorched earth over a red barn unless someone's protecting more than grass-clipping rules. So I made a call. His name's Marty Delaney, but folks in our circle call him Hawk. Used to work federal investigations. IRS, corporate fraud, black bag stuff. One of the sharpest damn bloodhounds I've ever met. Guy once found a bribery trail hidden inside a church bingo fund. We go way back 90s, Austin. He owed me a favor. I never cashed it until now. We met at Gracie's Diner in town. Neutral ground. Best hash browns this side of the Guadalupe. He showed up wearing mirrored sunglasses and a shirt with a pattern that looked like it lost a fight with a parrot. But don't let the wardrobe fool you. The man's brain could slice granite. You're telling me, he said between sips of black coffee, this HOA prez went from petty fines to full-on sabotage. Yep, and that's what worries me. He leaned in. Petty tyrants don't act that bold unless they feel untouchable. Someone's greasing the gears? I nodded. Follow the money. Hawk. He grinned. Always do. By Tuesday, he was neck deep in documents. HOA budgets, county filings, public fund reports, even subpoenaed records from the planning office thanks to a little help from Ada Harper, who quietly greenlit the request. By Friday, he called me with a voice like a man who just found gold in a septic tank. Grisman, he said, you sitting down? Nope. Well, grab a chair, because your HOA didn't just harass you. They've been funneling emergency funds into a fake consulting firm. Name East Trail Civic Solutions, LLC. Never heard of it. Want to guess who runs it? Hawk asked. Hit me. Renee Talbot's husband. That was the first domino. Hawk found 3 payments, each just under $10,000, enough to avoid automatic audit triggers labeled as Community Beautification Consulting. Problem is, East Trail Civic Solutions had no office, no staff, and the listed address a mailbox at a UPS store. We cross-checked the routing numbers. Money went straight into a joint account held by Renee and her husband. Textbook fraud, Hawk said, grinning. Sloppy, arrogant, and absolutely indictable. But he wasn't done. See, HOA finances are supposed to be transparent to the homeowners. But guess what? Clear Horizon HOA hadn't released a public budget report in 18 months. No meeting minutes either. Half the board votes private session. That ain't community governance, that's organized embezzlement. And then came the cherry on top. An internal memo Hawk dug up, dated 6 months before all this started. Header read Operation Fence Out. Strategic consideration for incorporation of non-HOA properties. Their goal: slowly pressure surrounding non-HOA landowners into voluntary compliance, then annex the land into the HOA grid. Guess who was target number 1 on that list? Me. Grizz McAllister. You were never just a nuisance to him. Hawk said, you were a test run. I leaned back in my chair and let that rage settle in. I've carried court files before. Hell, I've carried boxes into the state Supreme Court that were heavier than a mule's conscience. But this one hit different. Because this file wasn't about defending something. It was about exposing everything. Me and Hawk walked into the county prosecutor's office on Monday morning. Sharp. He had the documents in a beat-up Samsonite case that looked like it survived Nam. I had a manila folder in one hand, a flash drive in the other, and boots that hadn't been polished since my last oath of office. The receptionist barely looked up. We didn't wait for an appointment. We walked straight to Ada Jolene Harper's door and knocked like we meant it. Come in. She called. Businesslike. She didn't expect the two of us. Her eyes narrowed the second she saw Hawk. Who's this Marty Delaney? Former Federal Financial Crimes Unit. My personal bloodhound, I said, setting the folder on her desk. Her eyebrows went up. Then down. What am I looking at? Hawk opened the binder like a priest opening a book of sins. 3 separate payments to a shell company tied to Renee Talbot. No business license, no staff, no address, all labeled as consulting for HOA matters that don't exist. Flip. Unreported fund transfers, HOA members voting to approve budgets off the record in closed-door sessions. Zero transparency. Flip. And right here an internal memo showing intent to harass and annex private property. Mr. McAllister's ranch was just the first. Flip? Jolene leaned back in her chair like the wind just left her lungs. You're telling me this HOA created a fake consulting firm, funneled money to one of their own, conspired to absorb private properties, and used intimidation tactics to silence resistance, no? I said, voice steady, I'm not telling you. I'm showing you. I handed her the flash drive. Drone footage, surveillance cam, timestamps, emails, scanned checks, and a confession from one of the perps, Troy Barker. She took a deep breath. Then she said the words I'd been waiting for. This is enough to open a formal investigation. Now I've been in politics long enough to know investigations move slower than a tortoise on Valium. But not this time. Jolene moved fast. Within 48 hours, her office filed for financial record subpoenas on the entire Clear Horizon HOA board. The judge signed off quicker than a sneeze, and the next week all hell broke loose. Investigators swarmed the Clear Horizon HOA clubhouse. Computers were seized, bank accounts frozen. HOA meetings were canceled until further notice. Debbie Klein was spotted yelling at the press through her car window. Renee Talbot's law firm got suspended pending ethics review, and homeowners started talking. Turns out there were dozens of them. People who'd been fined for paint colors that weren't warm enough, had their Christmas lights flagged as light pollution, or got threatening letters for planting tomatoes in the front yard. Folks too scared to push back, too tired, too poor, too polite. But now they had a voice. And one letter hit me right in the gut. It came from a woman named Abigail Moore, single mom. Lived on the edge of the subdivision. Hadn't spoken a word during any of this. "Dear Mr. McAllister," she wrote, "most of us gave up a long time ago. We thought that's just how HOAs worked. But then we saw you stand your ground. And now, maybe, so can we." That's when I knew. This wasn't just a win. It was a damn movement. So I called Hawk. "Feel like going public?" I asked. He laughed. "Grizz. I was born ready to burn snakes." We held a town meeting in the county fairgrounds, rented folding chairs, 2 borrowed speakers, and a banner made from a feed store tarp. Over 120 people showed up. Homeowners, ranchers, veterans, even a damn news crew from Austin. And when I stepped up to that mic, I didn't speak like a lawyer. I spoke like a man who'd had enough. Homeowners associations were created to protect people, not to own them, not to bankrupt them, and sure as hell not to terrorize their families for the crime of painting their porch red. I told them everything. The threats, the fire, the fake companies, the files. And when I finished, the whole damn place stood up and clapped. Not for me, but for every person who'd ever been screwed over and told to sit down. That night, Bobby Ray handed me a cold beer on my porch. "You know," he said, "they tried to paint you as a crazy old cowboy." I took a sip. Let it roll. "Yeah," I said, "but turns out this crazy old cowboy had receipts. Court ain't like TV. Ain't no big speeches every 10 minutes. And most lawyers don't look like they just walked off a soap opera set. But let me tell you, when I walked into that courtroom, I brought the damn storm with me. It was a Tuesday, early. Rain coming down like the sky was finally sick of holding back. Felt poetic? Really. I rolled up in my black Silverado, suit on, boots polished, badge in the breast pocket like a quiet reminder of who the hell I used to be and still am. When it counts, my old briefcase scuffed leather, steel latches. Looked like it had been through a war, which it had. The courtroom was packed. Not just reporters and townsfolk, but half the damn Clear Horizon HOA board, what was left of it. Front row. Debbie Klein, nervously chewing peppermint gum like her life depended on it. Renee Talbot, stiff as rebar, eyes darting like a cornered raccoon. Leonard Kent, her brother, looking like he just realized orange jumpsuits don't come in slim fit. Even Troy Barker was there, eyes down, lawyer whispering in his ear like a bad conscience. Presiding judge was Han. Carla Hightower, a woman you don't lie to. Blink it funny, or interrupt unless you got a damn good reason and a death wish. Court is now in session. The bailiff called. Case Shakib Shus Wofor 81, McAllister vs. Clear Horizon Valley Homeowners Association. "Mr. McAllister," the judge said. "Looking dead at me. You may proceed." I stepped up. Didn't look at the crowd. Didn't look at the cameras. Just the judge. And the truth. "Your Honor, I began, voice even but firm. What we have here ain't just a civil complaint. It's not just a neighborly feud or a little HOA disagreement about fences and paint palettes. No, ma'am. What we have here is a damn conspiracy. I laid it out. From the lawsuit that never had jurisdiction, to the rock thrown through my window, to the arson, the break-in, the trespassing, to the shell company run by Renee's husband, and the memo laying out their Operation Fence Out. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't need to. Because the evidence did all the shouting for me. Halfway through, I dropped the flash drive on the clerk's desk. Surveillance footage, financial records, witness testimony, all verified, all time-stamped, all real. The courtroom was dead silent. Even the reporters stopped typing. Then I turned, faced the defense table, looked Debbie Klein dead in the eyes. You could have run a neighborhood, I said, calm as a coiled snake. But instead, you tried to run a kingdom. And you forgot one thing I built the damn laws you just broke. Judge Hightower flipped through the documents, eyes sharp behind her glasses. Then she looked at Renee. Miss Talbot, she said. Do you have anything to say in your defense? Renee stood up. Hesitated. Your Honor, I was misled by my clients. I wasn't aware of sit down. Judge snapped. Don't lie in my courtroom. Boom. Silence. After 20 minutes of deliberation, Judge Hightower returned with her ruling. But it didn't take that long for anyone in the room to guess what was coming. Judge Hightower returned to the bench like she was carrying thunder behind those robes. She adjusted her glasses, cleared her throat, and looked right at Debbie and Renee like she was about to nail their hides to the courthouse wall. This court, she began, has reviewed the evidence submitted by Mr. McAllister and the district attorney's office. What we've seen is not merely poor governance or miscommunication. What we've seen is systemic abuse, financial fraud, and coordinated intimidation carried out under the banner of a homeowners association. She turned to Debbie. Miss Klein, as president of Clear Horizon Valley HOA, you not only authorized illegal surveillance and harassment, you oversaw the misuse of over $40,000 in association funds for personal gain. Then to Renee, Miss Talbot, as legal counsel, your duty was to uphold the law, not manipulate it. Your failure to disclose conflict of interest and participation in this scheme is reprehensible. Renee turned pale. Debbie. She looked like she was about to throw up in her purse. The courtroom held its breath. And then Judge Hightower dropped the hammer. Effective immediately, the Clear Horizon Valley Homeowners Association is dissolved. All current and former board members are prohibited from serving on any HOA board within the state for a minimum of 15 years. A permanent injunction is granted protecting Mr. McAllister and his property from any HOA-related interference. A formal referral is made to the District Attorney's Office and State Bar Association to pursue criminal charges and professional sanctions. Gasps echoed through the room. Reporters were already sprinting outside to get the story on air before the ink dried. Me, I just stood there. Didn't smile, didn't flinch. Just took it all in. Outside the courthouse, it was chaos cameras, questions, microphones shoved in my face. Mr. McAllister, how does it feel to take down an entire HOA? Did you expect this outcome? Is it true your barn was used in a HOA slideshow? I gave one answer. I spent 30 years defending justice for other folks. This time, I just wanted to protect my land. Turns out, those two things are the same damn thing. That night, Bobby Ray and I sat out on the porch like we'd done 1,000 times before. The stars were out, cool breeze rolling in from the hills, Duke laying at our feet, tail twitching in his sleep like he was chasing ghosts. You did it, Bobby said, clinking bottles with me. They thought I'd fold. I said, thought I was just some washed-up old man with a barn full of rust. He laughed. Well, they weren't wrong about the rust. Yeah, I grinned. but they forgot who the hell they were dealing with. And just when I thought it was over, I got a letter. No name. No return address. Just a single line typed on clean paper. We watched the whole thing. We're next. The Silent Six. Inside the envelope, a photo of 6 homeowners from different states, all standing tall in front of their houses, holding signs that said, "We stand with Grizz." And in that moment, I knew. This fight wasn't just about me. It never was. Peace. Not the kind folks talk about in yoga studios or coffee shop bumper stickers. I'm talking real peace, the kind that smells like mesquite, sounds like wind in the grass, and tastes like silence in your coffee. That's what I finally had. No more letters in the mailbox. No more flashing lights outside my barn. No more HOA rats scurrying behind legal documents and fake smiles. Just me, the ranch, and that good old Texas sun. But even then, I didn't relax completely. Because after all I'd seen, I knew peace was earned, not given, and justice well. Justice don't end at a gavel. A few months after the trial, I got invited to a town hall. County commissioner wanted to honor my contributions to property rights. Whatever the hell that means. I showed up in jeans and boots, same as always. Didn't say much, just nodded when they handed me the plaque. But what came next that stuck with me? They led me through a park on the edge of town used to be zoned for an HOA expansion. Now it was protected community land, preserved by a new county ordinance written in part for my case. There, under an old oak tree, stood a bronze sign, "The Grizz McAllister Grove." For the man who stood his ground when the law forgot where it stood. I didn't cry. But damn, I almost did. Time passed. Grass grew. Cattle wandered. Sunsets rolled in like warm whiskey. And I got back to my life. My quiet, dusty, earned life. One morning, while I was patching a busted fence post, a knock echoed from the front gate. I looked up. A woman stood there. Mid-40s, tired eyes, strong shoulders. Behind her was a little boy, maybe 10 years old. Bowl cut, shoes covered in dust. She gave a little wave. "Mr. McAllister?" "Call me Grizz," I said, walking up. She smiled, nervous. "My name's Carol Davis. I was treasurer of the Clear Horizon HOA. Before it all went down, I didn't say anything." She reached into her bag and pulled out a fat envelope. "I kept copies," she said. "The original meeting notes, email threads, stuff that didn't come out in court." I didn't speak up back then. I was scared, but her voice cracked. "But after what you did, people are talking. People want change. And I thought maybe you'd know what to do with these." I took the envelope, nodded once. Then her boy stepped forward. Didn't say a word, just held out a folded piece of paper. I opened it. A crayon drawing, me big cowboy hat, boots, gray beard standing tall in front of a red barn. Next to me, a flag, big, bold, waving. Above it all, in crooked block letters, "Thank you for being brave." I looked at the boy. He looked up at me with big eyes. I didn't blink. His mom spoke quiet. He used to cry because they wouldn't let him ride his bike past the security gate. Now, he rides every morning. I didn't cry. But damn it if my throat didn't tighten like barbed wire. That night, I sat out on the porch with Duke asleep at my feet, journal open on my lap, pen in hand. I watched the sun melt down behind the hills, letting the sky bleed orange and purple across my land. My land. Still here. Still mine. Not because of anger, not because of ego, but because of truth. And because one cowboy still believed the law could be a sword and a shield. Not just a leash. Final journal entry. They came for me with paper and fire. I answered with truth and grit. They tried to take what wasn't theirs, but they forgot one thing. I may be retired, but I ain't ever done.